Hey everyone. I had a couple of requests, actually a few, regarding doing the Jonbenet Ramsey case, and it's been done a lot and so much, speculation and all these theories and whatnot, and I had a problem with doing this one because you know no matter what I say or what I see in the cards and what I see in my vision regarding this, there's always going to be, I'm sure there's going to be some unanswered questions. You know, this is such a horrible, horrible thing that had happened. And if you're not familiar with the JonBenet Ramsey case, you must be underneath a rock somewhere because everybody has known about this. This little girl who had her name is JonBenet Ramsey, and from Boulder, Colorado, and she had died between 12/25 and 12/26 of 1996. Very tragic case. But I kind of put off doing this one, and I'm kind of curious too what I'm going to see, but I also have lots of apprehension regarding this, um, because it was so vile. It was so horrible what had happened. So um, I guess we'll just get into it. Like always, all of my readings are all alleged, my opinion, not facts. And I did shuffle the cards before I started this video, but I'll do a couple more shufflings. And I'm using, like always, I'm using my Bluebird Lenormand cards. So here we go. Let's see what happens. Jonbenet. Oh, wow. Okay. Okay, yeah, definitely this reading is about JonBenet. Uh, there's a child. She's underneath the star or above the stars, um, which means that she's floating in the stars, and also the coffin. There's death involved. Wow. All right, you guys. First of all, I want you to know something, and I see it already. That I want you guys to completely clear your heads of everything you've heard and read about this case right now. Um, the second I started putting cards down, I started seeing visions of what was happening. Um, so, oh, I feel so bad for this family, you guys. I feel sick. I feel sick to my stomach. They've gone through so much. Accusations and finger pointing, and the police department, the Boulder Police Department, just really having tunnel vision. It's really disgusting. So, all right. So I want you to know something. The family, they felt safe in their home. They felt so safe that they had taken that for granted. All right. I see unlocked doors. They lived in a safe neighborhood. Why would they think, in their mind it was a safe neighborhood? Why would they think, that anything bad would happen? Nothing has ever happened bad to them before like this. They just didn't think it was even like a thing. It didn't even enter into their minds. Wow. I want you to know something too. So, Patsy, the mom, she had passed away from cancer. And this definitely this definitely ate her. This shortened her lifespan. The tragedy that had happened. It's just terrible. All right, so let's get on with this. So anyway, I know that this is going to be. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I'm gonna tell you what I see in the cards and what I see in my visions, and I'm telling you what, this is against popular opinion, but the family had nothing to do with this. Not at all. I just feel like I feel so sad, you guys. This is awful. This is so horrible. So I just I want to even cry. It's just so bad. All right. So so anyway, um the guy that did this, I want you to know that he had watched this family for a long time. For a very long time. Months and months, really. And he worked for like a janitor, like menial task type of a job. It was like janitorial work. And I want to say it was for like like this dance school or some kind of school that Jonbenet was going to, or even just where they were taking Jonbenet Patsy, the mom, was taking her for those beauty pageants. And I want to tell you guys something too. Um, Jonbenet loved those beauty pageants. She loved doing it. She loved the competition. She thrived on it. She was a lot like her mother that way. So don't be down on the mom for doing that for Jonbenet. They both enjoyed it. Patsy was very close to Jonbenet, and that's how they bonded. Jonbenet loved every second of doing that pageant stuff, every second of it. But that's where it was like one of the things that Jonbenet was training for. I don't know if it was dance or singing or whatever, but that's where this guy had seen Jonbenet, was when she was training for her pageants. So this guy, let's get to this guy, the guy that did this. He is not on the radar at all of the Boulder Police Department. His name hasn't even been mentioned once in all of the um, investigation. This is no one that was ever in. They had no idea. They have no idea. But I feel like they will, though. But we'll get to that. So this guy is super awkward, very awkward, socially inept, confused. So, also I gotta tell you, he, at the time of this happening, lived with his mom, like in the basement. He could come and go as he pleased. Um, Very awkward, like I said before, quiet. Didn't say a whole lot. It's like I see in my vision, like people would try and talk to him, but he'd just turn and walk away. Um, so this guy's like really small. He's like small, wiry, and really wiry. And his eyes are really creepy. You guys, his eyes are really creepy. His eyes are like black. Like black. Um, Very limber guy, very limber. He was also super into like the military stuff and police stuff. In fact, he tried to get into the like to be a police officer, but he failed the psyche eval, and and a lot of times that won't discourage a lot of people. They just keep going back and trying until they get in. But he didn't take rejection very well. So oh yeah. The weird thing about it is that if he would have gotten into like a police academy or whatever, like he was trying to, he would have been fingerprinted and they would have caught him way before now. But this guy has since he tried doing that, and um, he's always had just these really like low paying menial jobs, staying under the radar, doesn't talk to much to too many people, doesn't have any friends, just kind of staying to himself. Um, but this is how he met them, is by his job at the time. And he when he saw Jonbenet, he like, okay, you guys, this is so weird. You're gonna think this is so weird, but he like fell in love with her, and uh, he couldn't stop thinking about her. So he ended up following Patsy home, um, to after one of their, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was dance or singing or what, but he followed them home from there. And then after that, he just surveilled them. Now, this guy, because he had such a fascination with the police and the military, he also had an arsenal of things, guns and knives and um, police batons, and that's going to figure into this later, fortunately. And rope and all that. He had this whole thing going on, and this very vivid imagination on what he wanted to do. Because up until like Jonbenet, he really didn't know what his purpose in life was, And when he saw Jonbenet, his purpose was her, and that gave him life, because before that he was just nothing, and then after he saw her, she kind of breathed life into him and gave him a purpose, an evil purpose, but it was a purpose. Excuse me. So anyway, so this I'm not upset, you guys, yet, but I know I probably will be later. I'm having coughing fits. So anyway, he became obsessed. He stalked them. He surveilled them meaning the family in Jonbenet. He was so possessive of her that, like, when he watched, like, Jonbenet's mom, like, pick her up and, like, going from, like, on the sidewalk, they were, like, walking on the sidewalk, and Patsy picked her up. He got jealous of her even touching her. Just super bizarre. But he was always watching. He was watching in a car. And I don't know how they didn't spot him, because his car was like this junk car. It stood out. I mean, this is a nice neighborhood. But, I mean, he did, that's what he did. So, let's fast forward. This guy. So, he soon discovered that the Ramseys would leave their back door open. They didn't lock their doors, you guys. They had a security system. They didn't lock the doors. And this guy he went into their home. He went into their home, and he knew he knew the layout of his home. I mean, he got to know it pretty well, actually. Uh, he knew, you guys, this is so creepy. While the family was away, he even laid in her bed. Okay? He even laid in her bed. Before that horrible night. So, speaking of that horrible night, it was December 25th. So, he was watching the family, and what he did was, excuse me, he entered into the home through the basement window because usually the back door was locked or not locked, but it was locked that day because the father was like, we have Christmas presents here, and you know, we're not going to be here for a little while, so I'm just going to lock it up just in case. They have presents. He didn't want the kids to be disappointed if they, something happened and somebody broke in or whatever because he left the door unlocked. So he locked the door. So this guy, he comes to the house as he watched them leave. He tries to go through the back door. He couldn't because it was locked. So he went to the basement. This is like in the afternoon, like when the Ramseys left for that Christmas party, right? So, excuse me. So he goes through the basement window, which was, already broken from before from Mr. Ramsey, but he ends up entering through that basement window. And he had big plans for Jonbenet. So he knew that the family was gone. He didn't know for how long, but he figured it was going to be for a little while. He watched them walk out to their vehicles and all dressed up. He figured they were going to a party. They'd be gone for a little while. So this guy goes in and he has this plan, like I said, right? But really, just take Jonbenet home with him. He was living in the basement with his mom's house, but his mom was like on some kind of a Christmas vacation. She was gone from the house. He had like a week, alone in this house, so he was pretty excited. So what he did was, while the Ramseys were gone, he found a notepad in the house and got a pen. And he already knew that there was going to be a notepad there because he had seen it before when he went in before. I mean, this is so creepy, you guys. I mean, this guy came and left that house a few times. And anyway, so he got that notepad and wrote that ransom note. Now, what he wanted to do was to write the note to throw people off, the family off. Like he was a faction, but he was just he didn't he knew his mom. He had his mom, his family, but that's it. He didn't have any friends. His extended family was like way like living on the opposite end of the of the United States. He really just had no one really. And so he wanted to throw people off like he was more important. He felt more important when he wrote the ransom letter, like he was a faction, you know, some military thing, or whatever. I mean, the ransom note was way weird. It was way over the top. And he exaggerated that because it it gave him power. It made him feel powerful to write that note, knowing what he was going to do to Jonbenet. It's so sad. So anyway, disgusting is what it is. Not sad. Sad for Jonbenet, but disgusting with this guy. So he wrote the note. It took him a couple times, and they found this notepad in the Ramsey's house, and you know, um, they claim that Patsy wrote on it, and no, she didn't. She had written on it before, but this guy is the one that did this ransom note. Okay, let's move on. So, I want to. Okay, the ransom note. I want to say one more thing about the ransom note. So, like what was it, $118,000 or whatever. So, this guy would listen in on the conversations Patsy Ramsey and other mothers when they were watching or waiting for their kids. And whenever he knew that Patsy Ramsey and Jonbenet was like I don't know where, in the like a dance studio or whatever, and the parents were waiting, he made sure that he was within earshot and listened. And he heard Patsy Ramsey talk about like some bonus that her husband got, and it wasn't even that year that he had gotten it. It was like the year before or something, which doesn't make sense to me. I always thought was expecting it that year, but whatever. I'm just telling you how I see it. So that was a specific amount, and he perseverated on that. What he did was he was like, who gets that much for a bonus? Who does he think he is? He was jealous. He was jealous of Mr. Ramsey being able to be around Jonbenet without having to sneak around. I mean, he was jealous of all of the family members there. This guy was sick. Disgusting individual, this man. So, he also, it's like, he wanted to be specific because he thought it would also throw off law enforcement because, this guy, Patsy Ramsey, had no clue that this guy even existed. She paid no attention to him, right? So this guy knew a personal piece of information about them regarding the bonus. And so he made sure he mentioned that so that would throw law enforcement off even more. I don't know if that makes sense, but he was thinking, oh, they'll never guess it's me because they'll never know how would I know? How would, anybody know that it was 118,000? That's why he put that number down, specifically to throw off law enforcement. But when he was writing that ransom note, he had absolutely no intention of going through with that. He was going to take Jonbenet home with him. That's what he wanted to do, was take Jonbenet home with him. Because he had a week before his mom came home. So he never thought that his plan would go awry, and boy, did it ever. So when he went to the Ramseys that day, December 25th to the 26th, he brought like a kit with him, because he's like into police officers and, military. He brought a police baton. Actually, it's like a telescoping one. It wasn't like a real police baton. It was like something that he could like pull out, rope and different stuff. But he brought some things with him because he was going to tie her up and take her home, right? So, all right. So he wrote the note. I'm going back and forth, guys. Sorry, but this is just how it's kind of showing itself to me. He wrote the note. He put the notepad back because when the Ramseys came back home from the party, He didn't want them to notice anything out of place because he was still in the house. So he put the notebook back where he had found it and the pen, and the family came back home. Meanwhile, he waited in the basement. And uh, he waited long enough to till he figured that they were probably asleep. He went upstairs, put his plan in action, put the ransom note on the steps, right? Went to Jonbenet's room. So she was laying there asleep, and what he did next was what made everything go to hell. So he wanted to make sure that, um, you know, he wanted her to be knocked out. So he took the baton and he knocked her out while she was sleeping. He hit her too hard, you guys. And he didn't realize that until later, but he hit her too hard. Then he carried her downstairs. Tied up her hands, placed tape on her mouth, and then he SA'd her. SA'd her. And this was in a different room. I'm not familiar with the layout of the house, but I see it's not the same room as the room she was discovered in. Um, so then what he ended up doing, you know, of course, when he SA'd her, he had to take her bottoms off. This is so disgusting. He had taken her bottoms off, her panties off, SA'd her, and he redressed her because he had plans on taking her with him. His he was not able to wait to take her home to do that. He just lost control. He was like, I want to just have my way with her now. So gross. So then it's like this is all kind of muddled a little bit, but I see him trying to put her in this, like, the suitcase that was by the window. He was trying to stuff her in that suitcase, but she wouldn't fit. And he was trying to put her in that, and her legs were too long. Trying to, and then meanwhile, when he was doing that, he noticed that she started to make these weird noises. Weird breathing noises and stuff. And so he started to kind of freak out. He's like, well, maybe I did hit her too hard on the head. Because when he hit her on the head before, when she was in bed, um, it sounded like, it sounded like it was a crack. He was like, oh, maybe I hit her too hard. But then when he was carrying her down, he was watching her breathe, and she was breathing fine, so he didn't worry about it. But then now, after all this time, um, she was breathing weird. and she was making weird noises. And so he started freaking out. And he slapped her face. Um, he had her like back on the she was like her back was on the ground, and it was like he was doing it was weird. He thought CPR or something. He was like he didn't know how to do it, but it was like he was doing CPR, you guys, because he knew that something was going on with her because of the noises that she was making. God, it's so weird. So, I mean, this guy doesn't think clearly. He's freaking out, he's panicking because all he was thinking about was himself. He didn't care if she was, he loved her in a weird way, but he knew what he was going to do with her once he was done with her because he didn't want anybody else to do that to her. If that makes any sense. But this kind of freaked him out enough to where all my plan it's like I hear him saying all my plans are going to hell. And she acted like she was suffering. It was just horrible noises coming out of her, out of Jonbenet. So what he ended up doing was uh, he didn't see any point taking her now because he figured her time was coming, but she seemed like she was suffering. So he fashioned that garrote, however you pronounce it. And mind you, he was really good with knots. He was obsessed with the military. He was obsessed with like knot making. And he fashioned a knot. And he used the garrote. And this is still in the same room that he SA'd her in. He put her on her stomach. And he used the garrote. And then she had she ended up voiding everywhere. So after he did that, he didn't want to leave her in her urine. He also kind of wanted to put her somewhere that maybe she wouldn't be discovered so quickly. He just wasn't thinking clearly, you guys. And that cellar, that part of the house was dark, no light. So that's where he placed her. And he had found a blanket that I'm not too sure if he brought it down with her or if he found it in the laundry room. But I just see him grabbing a blanket and covering her with it. Now, like there's these marks on her body that resemble a taser. So after, I'm jumping back and forth, but sorry about that. But after he slapped her face to try and kind of to wake her up, when she was making those weird noises, he was freaking out. There was the train track things, right, with the spokes on them. He jabbed her with it really hard. Because he was going to see if that would wake her up, kind of pull her out of it. Because he was freaking out. So then that's where those marks came from. So then this guy ends up covering her up with a blanket. I don't know where he got it. He did. He covered her up with a blanket because in his eyes he loved her. Lord have mercy. What a sick individual. And so then he ended up, he didn't go back out the window. He actually left through the back door. Um, this guy, when he did this, he was like in his 20s. So add what, 30 years after that? And the guy he's done these menial jobs still. Nothing that would ever get him fingerprinted. He did try to do it again to another little girl in that neighborhood. Um, but what he did was he revised his plan. He was like thinking, well, first of all, his mom was home. His mom was home, and he was just planning on, SAing this little girl. And if he would have gotten away with that too, the mom interrupted him. But if he would have, and that scared him. That scared him. Um, if the mom wouldn't have interrupted him and he would have gotten away with that, he thought for sure the mom recognized him because he was the janitor or whatever in the same place that he had seen Jonbenet. So he was thinking, oh yeah, she must recognize me. He left town, you guys. And what he's doing is he's still doing menial jobs, but he's still committing these crimes. He's still doing things. He is an evil individual. He's only about pleasuring himself. But what he's doing now is he's going after children that are not so prominent, that will garner, it sounds so terrible, but that will garner like a whole lot of attention. I've even seen him like almost, it's like I see him off and on sometimes like dating women with children specifically. I mean, any way that he can get close to a child. This guy is so gross. But I also want to tell you that the the investigation regarding this is not over. It's not over, and I do see him getting caught, being put away for this, but it's going to be a little bit longer. They're going to be doing some kind of a DNA thing. Obviously, it's going to have to be DNA, but it's genealogy, like, like how they go back and they find a relative and they kind of discover who this guy is through that kind of DNA. And they're working on that right now. They're working on it right now, and they're narrowing it down. So he doesn't have much more time left before everybody knows who this guy is. But I feel so bad for the Ramseys, you guys. I mean, I know there's so many of you that think that they're guilty, but it's horrible. Um, this family really has gone through hell. So anyway, all right. I'm sorry if I jump back and forth. It's just kind of what happens sometimes. Well, a lot of times. Um, take care, everybody. Hug your little ones. Love you all. Bye bye.